Hey y'all, Coach DJ here. I just wanted to go live for a couple of minutes and respond to a few friends and even family members that have recently mentioned that they're praying for my health journey, but they're not necessarily comfortable reaching out to ask exactly how I'm doing, how the therapies are going. And so, naturally, being very transparent, I just thought I would create a video. I did put together some notes, so I'm looking down. It's only because I don't want to ramble too long about this. Um, I have mentioned in the past that I chose a holistic cancer therapy clinic. It is a Christian based clinic over the traditional medical model after collecting quite a bit of information from traditional oncology. And I do want to make a very clear statement. Obviously, I'm not a doctor, and the decisions that I've made for my health are an N of one. This is me making health decisions for myself. And from the beginning, when I was diagnosed 6 months ago, my goal was to feel as good as possible, to live as robustly as possible. And that's what I feel this holistic path is allowing me to do. So I just wanted to let you know that I do feel great, which is truly a blessing. And um, in terms of like how I felt when I was originally diagnosed 6 months ago, I've already shared on another video that I was then, and I am now, very metabolically healthy. So I was shocked and I felt shame. Like, how could this happen when I've worked so hard, really, for the past 6 years um, to improve my health? And I do want to get to that point in another video or another post about how you can be metabolically healthy and still end up with this cancer diagnosis. So, since my health coaching business is focused on metabolic health and the pillars of metabolic health, I thought I would just lay out a couple of the pillars of the treatment that I am going through the clinic. So the first one is diet and lifestyle. And I really haven't had to change much about that at all. The clinic um, strongly encourages people to be on a no sugar diet, which basically, if you're zero sugar, you're a carnivore. And I am very, very close to a carnivore, maintaining most days 5 or less total carbs. Um, if I have creep, it might go up to 10 carbs, but that's really, really rare. Um, so another thing that is really important is that I consume sufficient protein because many cancers, particularly in older people, can and often do cause something called cachexia, which is muscle wasting. And so I do consume, or I try to consume my body weight in grams of protein. It's really hard for me to do that because that's a lot of protein. And I have recently added a scoop of very clean protein powder to boost me over the edge. But the other part of that, in terms of diet, is fasting. I'm supposed to be fasting 24 hours once a week and 72 hours once a month. I typically have been trying to do the fasting when I drive to the clinic, and that just makes it easier. I'm actually fasting today. And then the other piece of it is well, the reason that you do the fasting is through to encourage autophagy, which helps starve those nasty little cancer genes. Um, so that's been pretty important to me. I also manage my glucose and ketosis levels very closely. I monitor those. And even though I don't eat sugar, really, keep my carbs super low, if my stress level is too high, and let's face it, when you have a cancer diagnosis, there's a little bit of stress. If my sleep isn't good, I will see my glucose go up. So I do try and monitor all those things very closely with a Keto Mojo. So the second pillar would be what happens when I actually go to the clinic. So I drive about 5 hours through the Smoky Mountains to get to the clinic, and I do that once a month. And it's very consistent what happens. First, I get IV therapy, and what they do is they use a nanotherapy. Um, it is something that was created by one of the owners and founders of the clinic, and it's proprietary. And nanotherapy, think of it as just tiny, tiny little particles. In traditional therapy, it can be a drug, but in this case, it's supplements. And the supplements are changed monthly, and they are specific to my diagnosis and my DNA, which has been determined by a liquid biopsy called an RGCC test. And the results of the RGCC test spit out this very long, like 32-page report that basically tells you how many circulating cancer cells you have in 7 milliliters of blood. And the range that I understand is decent is to have less than five or less circulating tumor cells within 7 milliliters of blood. And I feel very, very grateful that the results of my initial liquid biopsy was 2 cancer cells within the 7 milliliters of blood. Now, when I go down to the clinic this month, I am going to have that test redone because I've been on the therapy for a little over 3 months. I've been going down there since February, and they will retest. And I am just praying that the number goes below 2, which will show that the therapies are working. So I'll get to the home therapies in a minute. So at the clinic, they do the nanotherapy with IV, and then one of the doctors or nurses will also inject it into the 2 tumors that I had biopsied. And I have one in my armpit and then one under my left breast. And I have seen significant changes in those tumor cells since they started injecting them, and it's been crazy. They got bigger, they changed shape, they changed location. Now they're much smaller, which seems like a really good thing. They kind of take on a life of their own after the injections. And so, yeah, we'll see what happens with that. So the other thing, before I leave the therapy, and I'm there for 2 days, I go back to back, and they do the same regimen both days. And then they send me home with the updated therapies because they do change them month to month because cancer cells are very, very evil and adaptable. So I will get some changes in terms of the mixture of what's in the solution, and sometimes the supplements that they send me home with, well, they don't send me home with supplements, but the supplements they recommend They may or may not adapt them. Mine really have not been adapted since February. So we're on track according to the results of the RGCC test, which recommends both traditional therapies that have efficacy in treating this specific cancer for my specific DNA. And they also recommend holistic or alternative treatments, which are largely supplements. And ironically, the traditional therapy route recommended that I begin with 14 rounds of chemo. And after the RGCC test came back, that is actually not a high efficacy therapy for my diagnosis and for my DNA. I see I'm running a little bit long. I didn't mean to run this quite so long. But then there is the at-home therapy. So they send me home with 3 vials. I have to go to an IV clinic and get that done once a week. They have me doing my own intramuscular therapy rather than doing the injections into the tumors. And then there is a 3rd vial, which is for another therapy, and I'll just say it's for an internal cleansing, if you will. We'll leave it at that. And then, they also send me home, clinic also sends me home with 2 repurposed drugs, if you get my drift, as well as milk thistle to help support my my liver function, because I am on a ton of supplements, as well as, the therapies, and 1 prescription drug. I'm only on 1 prescription drug, which I kind of fought initially, and it's Celebrex. And according to some data, it does support the slowing down of tumor growth. There's a lot of controversy around that, but it also helps with that inflammation without having to use an NSAID, and it doesn't have all the negative aspects of a traditional over-the-counter NSAID. And I only have to take it 4 days a week. So I agreed to take it. You might see this, my diffuser. One of the therapies is frankincense. I'm supposed to use it in a diffuser, so I've got that going here in my office. I also put it in my bathtub. And prayer. Prayer is a very key component. Again, this is a Christian clinic, and they give you passages of scripture to meditate on every month, and particularly while you're fasting. And so I try to adhere to those as well, because they are very well aligned with the therapy. At home, I also do infrared sauna therapy. There's a lot of benefits, a lot of data about infrared sauna. And so I do that twice a week. So let's see if I've missed anything. I think that's pretty much it. Oh, they send me home also with injectables. Okay, I thought this was going to be the worst part of the treatment, but as it turns out, that internal cleansing part is really the worst. But the bottom line is I feel great. And when I first started my journey here, back in January, I met with all the oncologists, integrative oncologists, naturopathic doctors, before I even found this clinic. I told everyone that my goal was to live out my life feeling the best that I possibly can, and I feel terrific. So mission accomplished, and I will boldly ask for your prayers. I thank you for those of you who have reached out, with cautious questions and comments, and I hope to give you a really good report within the next month or so once I get the results back from the follow-up test from the RGCC test. So this definitely went longer than I thought it was going to, but I hope it was helpful for anyone seeking cancer treatment, in an alternative fashion, um, or perhaps you want to share this with people that maybe they've already gone through therapies and their cancers have not gone away and they feel like crap. um, it's certainly something to consider. Again, I'm not a doctor. I just know I feel great, and I feel blessed about that. So God bless y'all, and see you soon.